I didn't hear the crack when I went down. Just the dull, sickening thud of my body slamming against asphalt, and then this strange, hollow echo of my own voice saying, "Oh." Like I was surprised. Like I didn't know what falling felt like at 73 years old. The pain in my ribs was immediate, sharp, stealing my breath before I could even think to scream. My knee twisted wrong, bent at an angle that made my stomach turn. And the cold. God, the cold of that parking lot seeping through my coat, through my skin, straight into my bones. I tried to move. I did. But my body wouldn't listen. My right leg was pinned somehow, wedged between the tire of my car and the bumper of the one next to it. Black ice. I'd seen it glisten under the parking lot lights when I pulled in, but I thought I was careful. I thought I could make it. 73 years on this earth, and I still thought I was invincible at 6 in the morning in a grocery store parking lot. My phone slid out of my pocket when I fell. I watched it skitter across the pavement, just out of reach, the screen lighting up with some notification I'd never read. I stretched my arm as far as it would go, fingers scraping against the rough ground, but it was useless. Everything was useless. The sky was still dark. The lot was empty. My voice echoed when I called out, bouncing off the cold metal and concrete, swallowed by the silence that came rushing back. I don't know how long I lay there before the panic set in. Minutes, maybe. Long enough for the cold to start numbing my fingers. Long enough for me to realize that no one was coming. Not yet. Not unless I could reach that phone. So I dragged myself. Inch by inch. My ribs screamed with every movement, every breath. I could feel something grinding in my knee, something wrong, something broken. But I kept going. I pulled myself forward with my elbows, my good leg pushing against the ground, my coat bunching up beneath me. The asphalt scraped my palms raw. I tasted blood from biting my lip too hard. But I reached it. I reached the phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock the screen. I had to try 3 times before my thumbprint registered. And when it did, when that home screen finally appeared, I sat there for a moment, staring at the list of contacts, trying to decide who to call first. Trying to convince myself that someone would answer. That someone would care. I called Rebecca first. My oldest. The responsible one. The one who used to hold my hand in parking lots when she was small, who used to tell me she'd take care of me when I got old. Straight to voicemail. Her voice, bright and professional, told me to leave a message, that she'd get back to me as soon as possible. I didn't leave one. What would I even say? "Hi honey, I'm lying in a parking lot with broken ribs and I need you." She wouldn't listen to it anyway. She never did. So I called Jordan. My youngest. My son. The one who used to promise me, every single time we spoke, that he was there for me. "Anything you need, Mom. Anything at all." I heard the phone ring once, twice, and then it stopped. A text came through a moment later. "Can't talk, busy. Can't talk. Busy." I stared at those words for longer than I should have. 3 words. That's all I was worth. 3 words and a screen going dark. I tried Marcus next. My nephew. The one I helped raise after his mother died. The one I fed, clothed, paid for college. The one who cried at his mother's funeral and told me I was the only family he had left. The phone rang and rang and rang. No answer. No voicemail. Just ringing, and then silence. By the time I'd cycled through every contact in my phone that mattered, my thumb was cramping and my chest felt like it was caving in. Not from the broken ribs. From something deeper. Something that had been cracking for years, maybe, and was only now shattering completely. That's when I heard the footsteps. Fast, running. A voice calling out, "Hey! Hey, are you okay?" I looked up. A kid. Couldn't have been more than 22, 23. Wearing a green apron from the cafe inside the store, his breath fogging in the freezing air. He dropped to his knees beside me without hesitation, without asking questions, without looking at me like I was some kind of burden. "I'm Liam," he said, pulling off his jacket and draping it over me. "I'm calling 911 right now, okay? Just stay still. You're gonna be okay." And I believed him. I believed him because he was there. Because he didn't have to be, but he was. He called the ambulance. Stayed on the ground with me, his hand on my shoulder, talking to me the whole time. Asking me my name, where I lived, if I had any allergies. Normal questions. Human questions. The kind my own children couldn't be bothered to ask. When the paramedics arrived, Liam didn't leave. He rode with me in the ambulance, even though he had a shift starting in 10 minutes. Even though I was a stranger. Even though he had every reason to walk away. "Do you have someone I can call?" one of the paramedics asked me, her voice kind but clinical. "I called," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. No one answered. She didn't say anything to that. Just wrote something down on her clipboard and exchanged a look with her partner. I knew that look. I'd seen it before. Pity. Pity for the old woman lying on a stretcher with no one coming to save her. At the hospital, they confirmed what I already knew. 3 cracked ribs. Dislocated knee. Bruises blooming across my chest and legs like some kind of sick bouquet. They asked me again if I had someone coming. I said I'd called. They asked if I wanted them to try. I said no. What was the point? Liam stayed. He sat in the hallway outside my room, scrolling through his phone, sipping bad hospital coffee, waiting for nothing and no one. When a nurse finally told him he could come in, he brought me a cup of water and a pack of crackers from the vending machine. "You didn't have to stay," I said. "I know," he said. And then he smiled. "But I wanted to. I wanted to." When was the last time someone wanted to be around me? They moved me to a rehabilitation center 3 days later. 3 days of lying in a hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the machines beep and the nurses whisper and the world move on without me. No one came. Not Rebecca. Not Jordan. Not Marcus. Not a single person from the family I'd spent my entire life building. Liam came. He brought me toiletries, warm socks, a crossword puzzle book. He sat with me during physical therapy, cheering me on when I managed to stand for more than 5 seconds, making terrible jokes to distract me from the pain. He had no reason to care. But he did. And then, on the 4th day, they showed up. Rebecca walked in first, her heels clicking against the linoleum floor, her expression somewhere between irritation and obligation. Jordan followed behind her, hands in his pockets, eyes darting around the room like he was looking for an escape route. They didn't hug me. Didn't ask how I was feeling. Didn't apologize for the silence. "So," Rebecca said, sitting down in the chair beside my bed. "We need to talk about your living situation. Not, 'How are you, Mom?' Not, 'We're so glad you're okay.' Not even, 'We're sorry.' Just, 'We need to talk.'" Jordan cleared his throat. "The thing is, Mom, this whole situation kind of made us realize that you're not really safe living alone anymore." "I'm fine," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. I slipped on ice. It could happen to anyone. "Sure," Rebecca said, her tone patient but patronizing. "But it didn't happen to anyone. It happened to you. And it's going to keep happening if you're alone in that big house with no one checking on you." "I can check on myself," I said. "Can you?" Jordan asked, and there was something in his voice, something that made my stomach turn. "Because it seems like you couldn't even get yourself up off the ground." I stared at him. At this boy I'd raised. This man I'd fed and clothed and loved with everything I had. And I realized he wasn't here out of concern. He was here out of convenience. "We've been thinking," Rebecca said, leaning forward, her hands folded in her lap like she was about to deliver a business proposal. It might be time to consider selling the house. There it was. We're not saying you have to, Jordan added quickly. But it's a lot of space for one person. And with the market the way it is right now, you could get a really good price. Enough to cover a nice assisted living facility and still have some left over. Left over for what? I asked. They exchanged a glance. Quick. Guilty. Well, Rebecca said slowly. For us. I mean, it's your estate, Mom. Eventually it's going to go to us anyway, right? So why not make it easier on everyone now? Eventually it's going to go to us anyway. I felt something inside me crack. Not my ribs. Something deeper. We're just trying to help, Jordan said, and he actually looked like he believed it. Like he thought he was doing me a favor by asking me to give up my home, my independence, my life, so they could get their hands on my money a little bit faster. Get out, I said. Rebecca blinked. What? Get out, I repeated, louder this time. Both of you. Get out of my room. Mom, don't be dramatic. Get out. They left. Quickly. Quietly. The door swung shut behind them, and I was alone again. Alone with the machines and the sterile smell and the truth I'd been avoiding for years. They didn't love me. They loved what I could give them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the facility settling around me. Somewhere down the hall, a TV was playing too loud. Somewhere closer, someone was crying. And I couldn't stop thinking about the fall. About lying on that cold asphalt, calling for help, and hearing nothing but silence. I reached for the drawer beside my bed and pulled out the folder I'd brought with me. The one with all my documents. My will. My trust. My power of attorney paperwork. All of it outdated. All of it still listing Rebecca and Jordan as beneficiaries, as executors, as the people who would inherit everything I'd spent my life building. I looked at their names on those pages, written in neat black ink, and I felt nothing. No love. No obligation. No connection. Just nothing. I decided right then. Right there in that hospital bed at 2 a.m. I decided I was done rewarding absence. Liam picked me up from rehab a week later. He drove me home in his beat-up Honda, helped me up the front steps, carried my bag inside. The house was exactly how I'd left it. Mail piled up by the door, swollen from rain. Plants dying on the windowsill. Dust covering every surface. A monument to neglect. You need help cleaning up? Liam asked, setting my bag down in the hallway. No, I said. And then, quieter, thank you. For everything. He shrugged. It's not a big deal. But it was. It was the biggest deal in the world. After he left, I stood in the middle of my living room and looked around. This house. I'd lived here for 40 years. Raised my children here. Buried my husband from here. And now it felt like a mausoleum. A place where love used to live. I called my lawyer the next morning. Malcolm had been handling my estate for years. He knew my family. Knew the dynamics. Knew the history. When I told him what I wanted to do, he didn't ask questions. Didn't try to talk me out of it. Just said, when do you want to come in? As soon as possible, I said. 3 days later, I sat in his office and signed new documents. A new will. A new trust. New beneficiaries. I removed Rebecca's name. Removed Jordan's name. Removed every single person who'd walked away when I needed them most. Are you sure about this? Malcolm asked, his pen hovering over the final page. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I said. And I meant it. I had letters written. 3 of them. 1 for Rebecca. 1 for Jordan. 1 for Marcus. I'd spent hours on them, drafting and redrafting, trying to find the right words. Trying to explain without sounding bitter. Trying to hurt without being cruel. In the end, I kept them simple. To Rebecca, I wrote, "You called my fall an inconvenience. You called my home a burden. You called my life something to be managed. I called you from the ground, and you didn't answer. I don't need you to understand. I just need you to know. Absence has consequences." To Jordan, I wrote, "You texted me, can't talk, busy," while I was lying in a parking lot with broken ribs. You stood in my hospital room and asked me to sell my house so you could inherit faster. I raised you to be better than this. You chose not to be. Absence has consequences. To Marcus, I wrote, "I raised you when your mother couldn't. I loved you like my own. I called you when I was hurt and scared and alone. You didn't answer. I won't call again. Absence has consequences." I mailed them on a Tuesday. Stood at the mailbox for a long time after dropping them in, my hand resting on the cold metal. Part of me wanted to reach in and pull them back. Part of me wanted to pretend everything was fine. But the bigger part of me, the part that had been lying on cold asphalt listening to unanswered phones, knew I couldn't. The silence that followed was deafening. No calls. No texts. No frantic knocking on my door. Just nothing. And somehow, that hurt more than anything they'd ever said. Liam kept coming by. Every week, like clockwork. He'd bring groceries, help me with small repairs around the house, sit with me while I did my physical therapy exercises. He never asked for anything. Never expected anything. He was just there. "Why are you doing this?" I asked him one afternoon, watching him fix a broken lamp I'd been meaning to deal with for months. He looked up, surprised. "Doing what?" "This. All of this. You don't owe me anything." He set the lamp down and sat back on his heels. "I know," he said. "But you needed help. And I could help. So I did." It was that simple to him. See someone in need. Help them. No ulterior motives. No hidden agendas. Just basic human decency. I cried that night. Not because I was sad. Because I'd forgotten that kind of kindness existed. 2 months after I mailed the letters, Rebecca showed up at my door. Unannounced. Uninvited. She knocked 3 times, sharp and impatient, and when I opened the door, she was standing there with her arms crossed and her jaw set. "We need to talk," she said. "No, we don't," I replied. "Mom, please. Just let me in." I stepped aside. Not because I wanted to. Because I was tired of fighting. She walked into the living room and stood in the middle of it, looking around like she was appraising the place. "I got your letter," she said. "Good." It was cruel. It was honest. She turned to face me, her eyes bright with anger. "You really think cutting us out is the answer? You think punishing us is going to make you feel better?" "I'm not punishing you," I said. "I'm protecting myself." "From what?" "From you." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "You didn't come when I called," I continued, my voice steady. "You didn't ask if I was okay. You didn't care until you thought your inheritance was at risk. So yes, Rebecca. I changed everything. Because you taught me what I was worth to you. And I finally believed it." She opened her mouth to argue, to defend herself, to make excuses. But nothing came out. She just stood there, staring at me, realizing that I meant every word. "This is your legacy," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're throwing it all away." "No," I said. "I'm giving it to someone who earned it." She left after that. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't slam the door. Just left. And I felt, I don't know. Lighter, maybe. Like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. Jordan came next. A week later. He didn't knock. Just let himself in with the key I'd never gotten around to taking back. I heard him before I saw him, his voice calling out from the hallway like he still lived here. "Mom? You home?" I met him in the living room. He was holding a folder. My stomach sank. "I talked to Rebecca," he said, skipping any pretense of small talk. "She told me what you did. And I want to know if it's true. Did you really cut us out of the will?" "Yes." His face went red. "Are you serious right now? After everything we've done for you?" I almost laughed. "Almost. Everything you've done for me?" "Jordan, you sent me a text that said, 'Can't talk, busy,' while I was lying on the ground with broken ribs. You stood in my hospital room and asked me to sell my house so you could get your inheritance faster. What exactly have you done for me?" "I've been busy, Mom. I have a life. I can't just drop everything every time you need something." "I didn't ask you to drop everything," I said quietly. "I asked you to answer the phone." He stared at me, his chest heaving, his hands clenched into fists. "You're making a mistake," he said. "No," I replied. "I made a mistake raising you to think you were entitled to everything I worked for. I'm correcting it now." He left. Slammed the door on his way out. I stood there for a long time after he was gone, listening to the silence settle back into the house. Marcus never came. Never called. Never sent a letter. I didn't expect him to. He'd made his choice a long time ago. But you know what? I was okay with that. I was okay with all of it. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for someone to show up. I wasn't hoping for something that was never going to come. I was just living. Liam came by that evening with pastries from the cafe and a grin on his face. "Brought you something," he said, holding up the bag. I smiled. A real smile. "Come in." We sat at the kitchen table, eating pastries and talking about nothing. About his life, his job, his plans for the future. He asked about my day. About my physical therapy. About the new book I was reading. Normal things. Human things. And when he left, when I was alone again, I didn't feel lonely. I felt content. I went upstairs that night and pulled out the last of my children's belongings from the guest room. Old clothes they'd left behind. Boxes of childhood memories they'd never come back for. I packed it all up, sealed the boxes with tape, and left them by the door. In the morning, I'd call Goodwill. I made myself a cup of tea, sat in my favorite chair by the window, and looked out at the street. The world kept turning. The sun kept rising. Life went on, with or without the people I thought I needed. And I realized something. Something I should have known a long time ago. Family isn't blood. It's not obligation. It's not shared DNA or last names or inheritance plans. Family is showing up. It's answering the phone. It's sitting in a hospital hallway with bad coffee because someone needs you. Family is earned. And I finally, gave mine to someone who deserved it. I updated the beneficiary forms the next day. Went back to Malcolm's office and filled out the paperwork with a steady hand. When he asked me if I was sure, I didn't hesitate. "His name is Liam," I said. "And he was there when no one else was." Malcolm nodded. Didn't argue. Just processed the paperwork and handed me a copy for my records. When I got home, I tucked it into the drawer with all the other documents. The new will. The new trust. The letters I'd written to myself, the ones I'd never send. Goodbyes I needed to say out loud to an empty room. I sat down at my desk and pulled out a piece of paper. One more letter. Not for my children. For me. "Dear Lenora," I wrote. "You spent your whole life trying to be enough. Trying to love hard enough, sacrifice enough, give enough. And it was never enough. Not because you failed. But because they stopped trying. So stop carrying their weight. Stop waiting for them to show up. Stop setting a place at the table for people who will never sit down. You are enough. You always were. And the people who couldn't see that don't deserve a place in your story anymore. You're free now. Live like it. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in the drawer with the others. Then I closed it. Gently. Finally. The house settled around me. The sun streamed through the windows. The kettle began to whistle on the stove. And outside, I could hear birds returning to the feeder I'd just filled. I poured my tea. Sat in my chair. And for the first time in years, I breathed without waiting for someone to take the air from my lungs. The weeks that followed were quiet. Not empty. Just quiet. June, my neighbor, had started coming by more often. She was the one who'd helped me in the beginning, before everything changed. Before the fall, before the hospital, before I realized how alone I really was. She'd bring over groceries, water my plants when I forgot, sit with me on the porch and talk about nothing in particular. You seem different, she said one afternoon, handing me a cup of coffee she'd brought from her kitchen. Different how? I asked. Lighter, she said. Like you're not carrying something anymore. She was right. I wasn't. The weight of expectation, the burden of hope, the crushing disappointment of loving people who couldn't love me back. All of it. Gone. I made some changes, I said simply. She nodded, sipping her coffee. Good for you. We didn't talk about my children. She didn't ask, and I didn't offer. Some things didn't need to be explained. Some silences were kinder than words. Liam still came by every week. Sometimes twice a week. He'd fixed the porch light I'd been meaning to deal with for months, rehung the crooked picture frame in the hallway, replaced the batteries in my smoke detectors. Small things. Things my children should have been doing. Things they never thought to do. You know you don't have to keep doing all this, I told him one day, watching him organize my medicine cabinet. I know, he said, not looking up. But I want to. There it was again. I want to. Such simple words. But they meant everything. Why? I asked. Why me? Why do you care? He paused, turning to look at me. My grandma fell a few years ago, he said quietly. Broke her hip. She lived alone, and none of us found out until 2 days later. By the time we got there, she'd been lying on her bathroom floor, terrified and in pain, for 48 hours. His voice cracked. Just slightly. She died 3 weeks later. And I never forgave myself for not checking on her more. For not being there when she needed someone. He wiped his eyes quickly, embarrassed. So when I saw you in that parking lot, I couldn't walk away. I couldn't be the person who left someone alone again. I reached out and squeezed his hand. Thank you, I whispered. For not walking away. He smiled. Small. Sad. You don't have to thank me for being a decent human being. But I did. Because decent human beings were harder to find than they should be. 3 months after I changed the will, Rebecca called. I almost didn't answer. Stared at her name on the screen for what felt like forever, my thumb hovering over the decline button. But something made me pick up. Mom, she said, her voice tight. Controlled. We need to talk about this. About the will. About everything. There's nothing to talk about, I said. Yes, there is. You can't just cut us out like this. We're your children. You're right, I said. You are my children. And that's why it hurts so much that you only call when you want something. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. That's not fair, she said finally. Isn't it? I asked. When was the last time you called just to see how I was doing? When was the last time you visited without an agenda? When was the last time you treated me like a mother instead of a bank account? She stopped. Started again. I've been busy. We've all been busy. That doesn't mean we don't care. No, I said. It means you don't care enough. And that's okay. You're allowed to live your life. But I'm allowed to live mine too. And I'm done waiting for you to show up. So that's it, she asked, her voice rising. You're just going to leave everything to some stranger? He's not a stranger, I said. He's the person who was there when I needed someone. That makes him more family than you've been in years. She hung up. Didn't say goodbye. Just hung up. I set the phone down and realized my hands were shaking. Not from fear. From relief. I'd said it. I'd said everything I'd been holding inside for so long. And the world didn't end. The sky didn't fall. I just kept breathing. Jordan tried a different approach. He showed up with his wife, Melissa, and their 2 kids. My grandchildren. I hadn't seen them in over a year. They stood on my porch, the kids holding handmade cards, their faces bright with innocence. Hi, Grandma, the oldest one said, holding out a card covered in crayon drawings. We missed you. My heart broke. Right there. Shattered into 1,000 pieces. Because it wasn't their fault. None of this was their fault. Hi, sweetheart, I said, kneeling down to hug them. I missed you too. Jordan stood behind them, his expression carefully neutral. Can we come in? I wanted to say no. Wanted to tell him that using his children to manipulate me was lower than I thought even he could go. But I couldn't do that to them. So I stepped aside. They came in. The kids ran to the living room, exclaiming over the things they remembered. The old piano I'd taught them to play. The toy box I still kept in the corner. Jordan and Melissa sat on the couch, watching me carefully. The kids really have missed you, Melissa said. They ask about you all the time. Then why haven't I seen them? I asked. Awkward silence. We've been busy, Jordan said. You know how it is. No, I said. I don't. Because when I was busy raising you, I still made time. I still showed up. He looked away. The kids came running back, asking if I had any cookies. I did. I always did. I took them to the kitchen, let them pick out the ones they wanted, listened to them chatter about school and friends and all the normal, beautiful things children talk about. Grandma, the youngest one asked, tugging on my sleeve. Are you mad at Daddy? I knelt down, cupping her small face in my hands. No, sweetheart. I'm not mad. I'm just sad. But not at you. Never at you. When they left, when I watched them pile into the car and drive away, I cried. Sobbed, really. Because I'd lost them too. Not by my choice. But I'd lost them anyway. Liam found me an hour later, sitting on the porch with red eyes and a box of tissues. Rough day? He asked, sitting down beside me. I told him everything. About Jordan's visit. About the kids. About how unfair it all felt. Maybe I'm making a mistake, I said. Maybe I should just forgive them. Let it go. Give them another chance. Liam was quiet for a moment. Then he said, how many chances have you already given them? I thought about it. Thought about all the missed calls I'd excused. All the broken promises I'd forgiven. All the times I'd convinced myself that next time would be different. Too many, I whispered. He nodded. Then you're not making a mistake. You're protecting yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. We sat in silence for a while, watching the sun set over the neighborhood. When it got too cold, we went inside. He made me tea. Sat with me until I stopped crying. Didn't judge. Didn't lecture. Just stayed. That night, I pulled out the documents again. The new will. The new trust. Liam's name listed as the sole beneficiary. I read through every page, making sure I wasn't acting out of spite. Making sure this was what I really wanted. And it was. God help me, it was. Because love isn't obligation. It's not blood. It's not shared history or family trees or biological ties. Love is showing up. It's answering the phone. It's sitting with someone while they cry. It's being there, consistently, without expecting anything in return. And Liam had loved me more in 3 months than my children had in 3 years. Malcolm called me a few days later. Rebecca's been calling my office, he said. Asking about the changes to your estate. What did you tell her? That I can't discuss my client's private matters. But she's persistent. She's threatening to contest the will. My stomach dropped. Can she do that? She can try, Malcolm said. But as long as you're of sound mind, and as long as the will is properly executed, she won't have much of a case. Especially given the documentation we have. The letters. The call logs. The hospital records showing no family visits. So I'm safe? You're safe, he confirmed. But I'd recommend keeping detailed records of any interactions you have with your children going forward. Just in case. Just in case. I hung up and sat with that for a while. My own daughter was threatening to take me to court. To prove I was incompetent. To take control of my life. The betrayal shouldn't have surprised me. But somehow, it still did. Marcus finally reached out 6 months later. An email. Short. Cold. I heard about the will. I understand why you're upset, but I think you're making a mistake. We're family. That should mean something. Let me know if you want to talk. I read it 3 times. Looking for an apology that wasn't there. Looking for accountability that didn't exist. Looking for any sign that he understood what he'd done wrong. There was nothing. I deleted the email and blocked his address. A year passed. Then another. My life settled into a new rhythm. Physical therapy twice a week. Coffee with June on Wednesdays. Dinner with Liam on Sundays. I started volunteering at the library, reading to children who reminded me of my grandkids. I joined a book club. Made new friends. Built a life that didn't revolve around waiting for people who would never show up. On my 75th birthday, Liam threw me a party. Small. Intimate. June was there, along with a few people from the library and the book club. People who knew me now, not who I used to be. There was cake. Laughter. Presents wrapped in cheerful paper. No one asked about my children. No one mentioned the family that wasn't there. Because this was my family now. The one I'd chosen. The one I'd built from scratch. Liam gave me a framed photo. It was from the day he'd picked me up from rehab. I was standing on my porch, leaning on my cane, smiling despite everything. He'd been standing beside me, his arm around my shoulders. I thought you should have it, he said. To remember. Remember what? I asked. That you survived. That you're stronger than you think. That you deserved better, and you finally let yourself have it. I cried. Happy tears this time. Grateful tears. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my chair by the window and looked at the photo. At the woman staring back at me. She looked tired. Bruised. But there was something in her eyes. Something that hadn't been there before. Hope. I made it. I'd survived the fall, the betrayal, the crushing weight of realizing that the people I loved most didn't love me back. And I'd come out on the other side. Different. Scarred. But whole. 2 years after I changed the will, I was diagnosed with cancer. Stage 3. The doctor sat me down in his sterile office with its fake plant and motivational posters and told me I had maybe 2 years. Maybe less. Depended on how aggressive we wanted to be with treatment. I called Liam first. Not because I needed anything. Because I wanted him to know. He came over that evening, sat with me at the kitchen table, held my hand while I cried. He didn't tell me it would be okay. Didn't feed me false hope. Just stayed. Just listened. Do you want me to call your kids? He asked gently. I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. If they cared, they would have called by now. And they hadn't. 2 years of silence. 2 years of nothing. Not a birthday card. Not a holiday message. Nothing. Part of me wanted to tell them. Wanted to give them one last chance to prove me wrong. But the bigger part of me knew it didn't matter. They'd either ignore it, or they'd show up out of guilt and obligation, hovering around my deathbed waiting for me to go so they could fight over whatever scraps were left. I didn't want that. I didn't want my last days filled with people who didn't love me pretending they did. So I didn't tell them. I started treatment a week later. Chemotherapy every Tuesday. Radiation on Thursdays. My hair fell out in clumps. My body ached in ways I didn't know were possible. Food tasted like metal. Sleep became something I chased but never caught. Liam drove me to every appointment. Sat in the waiting room with terrible magazines and worse coffee. Held the bucket when I got sick in his car on the way home. Never complained. Never made me feel like a burden. June came by with meals I couldn't eat but appreciated anyway. Soft things. Soups. Smoothies. Things that were easy on my stomach and my heart. Have you told your family? She asked one day, setting a container of broth on my counter. No. She nodded. Didn't push. Just squeezed my shoulder and left me to rest. 6 months into treatment, Rebecca found out. I don't know how. Maybe Marcus had somehow heard through the grapevine. Maybe she'd been keeping tabs on me. Either way, she called. Why didn't you tell me? She demanded, her voice sharp with accusation. Why would I? I asked, too tired to sugarcoat it. Because I'm your daughter. Because I have a right to know. You have a right to nothing, I said. You gave that up 2 years ago when you walked away. That's not fair. Life's not fair, Rebecca. You taught me that. She was quiet for a moment. Then, softer, can I come see you? Why? Because you're sick. Because you're my mother. Because I want to. Want to. The same words Liam had used. But they sounded different coming from her. Hollow. Empty. No, I said. Mom. No. You don't get to waltz back into my life because I'm dying. You don't get to ease your guilt by playing the devoted daughter now. I needed you 2 years ago. I needed you when I was lying on that parking lot. I needed you when I was alone in the hospital. I needed you when I was learning to walk again. You weren't there. So don't you dare show up now and expect me to be grateful. I'm sorry, she whispered. And maybe she was. Maybe she genuinely felt bad. But sorry doesn't fix broken bones. Sorry doesn't answer phones. Sorry doesn't show up when it matters. Goodbye, Rebecca, I said. I hung up. Blocked her number. And felt nothing. Jordan sent a letter a few weeks later. A real letter. Handwritten. It arrived in my mailbox on a Thursday, and I almost threw it away without opening it. But curiosity won. Dear Mom, it began. I heard you're sick. I don't know what to say except that I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you fell. I'm sorry I didn't visit you in the hospital. I'm sorry I treated you like an ATM instead of a person. I was selfish and stupid and I took you for granted. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve to be forgiven. But I needed you to know that I'm sorry. And that I love you. Even if I didn't show it. I read it 3 times. Looked for the catch. The ulterior motive. The request for money or forgiveness or reconciliation. But there wasn't one. It was just an apology. Too little. Too late. But an apology nonetheless. I folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. Not because I forgave him. But because it was the first honest thing any of my children had said to me in years. The cancer progressed faster than the doctors expected. By month 9, I was in hospice care. Not in a facility. At home. In my own bed. Surrounded by my things. Liam moved into the guest room. Said he wasn't leaving. Said he'd be there until the end. And he was. June came by every day. Brought flowers. Read to me when I was too weak to hold a book. Sat with me in comfortable silence when words were too much. The hospice nurse, a kind woman named Patricia, told me I had maybe a week. Maybe 2. Is there anyone you want us to call? She asked. I looked at Liam, asleep in the chair beside my bed. At June, arranging fresh daisies on my nightstand. At the life I'd built from nothing. No, I said. Everyone who matters is already here. 3 days later, Rebecca showed up anyway. She walked right through the door like she owned the place, June trying to stop her, Liam standing up from his chair with his hands clenched. You can't be here, June said firmly. She doesn't want to see you. She's my mother, Rebecca said. I have a right. You have no rights, Liam interrupted, his voice hard. You lost those when you abandoned her. Rebecca looked past them to where I lay in bed. Our eyes met. She looked older. Tired. Guilty. Please, she said. Just 5 minutes. I should have said no. Should have let Liam throw her out. Should have protected myself one last time. But I was so tired. Too tired to fight. Too tired to care. Let her in, I whispered. June and Liam exchanged glances but stepped aside. Rebecca approached my bed slowly, like she was afraid I'd disappear. She sat in the chair Liam had been occupying for weeks and reached for my hand. I didn't pull away. Didn't have the strength. I'm sorry, she said, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. I know. Can you forgive me? I looked at her. At this woman I'd raised. This stranger wearing my daughter's face. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe one day. But not today. She nodded, wiping her eyes. That's fair. We sat in silence for a while. She held my hand. I let her. Not because I forgave her. But because I was too tired to hate her anymore. The house, she said finally. The will. I understand why you did it. And I don't blame you. Good. But I need you to know. I didn't come here for that. I came because you're my mother. And I love you. Even if I did a terrible job of showing it. Maybe it was the morphine. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was just me finally letting go. But I believed her. I love you too, I whispered. I always did. She stayed for an hour. We didn't talk much. Just sat together, her hand in mine, the years of hurt and anger settling between us like dust. When she left, Liam came back in. Sat in his chair. Took my hand. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said. I think I am. Jordan came the next day. Brought the kids. They climbed carefully onto my bed, showed me drawings they'd made, told me stories about school. I listened, soaking in every word, every laugh, every moment. When they left, Jordan lingered by the door. Thank you, he said. For letting us come. I nodded. Too weak to speak. I meant what I said in my letter, he continued. I'm sorry. And I love you. I know. He left. And I was okay with that. Marcus never came. Never called. Never wrote. And that was okay too. I'd stopped waiting for him a long time ago. I died 3 days later. Peacefully. In my sleep. Liam was holding one hand. June was holding the other. Patricia was humming softly in the corner. It wasn't painful. Wasn't scary. It was just quiet. The last thing I remember thinking was this: I spent my whole life trying to be enough for people who would never see me. And in the end, the only people who mattered were the ones who saw me all along. My funeral was small. Liam planned it. Simple. Elegant. No fuss. Rebecca and Jordan came. Sat in the back. Didn't cause a scene. Didn't make it about them. Marcus didn't show. After the service, after everyone had left, Malcolm read the will. Rebecca and Jordan sat in his office, expecting. Hoping. He read my final wishes aloud. The house, the savings, the small inheritance I'd built. All of it went to Liam. Every last penny. There was a letter attached. One final message. Malcolm handed it to Rebecca. She read it aloud, her voice shaking. To my children. I loved you with everything I had. I gave you everything I could. But love is a two-way street. And you stopped traveling it a long time ago. I'm not leaving you my house because you didn't make it a home. I'm not leaving you my money because you only valued it when I was alive. I'm leaving everything to Liam because he showed up. He answered the phone. He stayed when staying was hard. He loved me not because he had to, but because he wanted to. That's what family is. Not blood. Not obligation. But choice. I hope one day you understand that. I hope one day you become the kind of people who show up. Not for inheritance. Not for appearances. But because it matters. Because people matter. I forgive you. Not because you deserve it. But because holding on to anger only hurts the person carrying it. And I'm done carrying things that aren't mine to carry. Live better than you loved me. That's all I ask. Goodbye. Mom. Rebecca folded the letter carefully. Handed it back to Malcolm. Stood up. Thank you, she said quietly. To Malcolm. To the room. To no one in particular. They left. And the door closed behind them with that same soft finality it had 2 years ago. Outside, the sun was setting. Birds were returning to feeders. The world kept turning. And somewhere, I hope I was finally at rest. Finally free from the weight of loving people who couldn't love me back. Finally enough. Just as I was.